Welcome back. Well, it's about 4 months since the federal government banned the use of Twitter in Nigeria. Last week, a group of non-governmental organizations met on the prolonged ban of Twitter, calling it a disservice to the federal government itself, as well as the citizens of Nigeria. Also, the Minister of Information, Mr. Lai Mohammed, had assured that the ban will soon be lifted. The definition of soon is what a lot of Nigerians have been asking. And he also said that there's progress in the talks with Twitter. The minister did not, however, specify when the ban will be lifted, and this has continued to cause worry to a lot of Nigerians. Well, one of those who carried out a research on the cost of the ban of Twitter on Nigeria is Benga Sheson, the executive director of Paradigm Initiative, notes that the country loses about $250,000 every hour since the Twitter ban. The figure arrived at, it says, using Brooklyn's institution method. Well, we have him joining us now to tell us how they arrived at this figure and where we can find this much money. Hello, Benga. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Well, you know, the figure $250,000 every hour certainly will catch a lot of attention. How did you arrive at this, and where is this much money? That means it's been in the Nigerian economy when Twitter was active.
Well, you know, the number is, it comes from a very transparent process. The Brookings institution, there's a tool called the Cost of Shutdown tool, and it's online on netblocks.org/COST. And the way it's calculated is pretty simple. Well, not pretty simple. I'm sure that it's simple to those who calculated it, is that you look at the size of a country's GDP, then you look at the contribution of ICT to that country, then you look at the contribution of platforms to that country, then you look at the contribution of a platform, which is Twitter, which is why it's easy to then calculate what percentage is lost to the economy every time that service is not being used. And in Twitter's case, by the way, the reason why this $250,000 has not been lost every hour is thanks to, you know, people who have been using VPNs to circumvent this ban by government. If they had not, then this would have been a total, you know, loss. And this, you know, costs include those who spend money to advertise, those who receive money to also promote services online, and all of this galaxy of services. That's what comes up to that contribution to the economy. Of course, it's a loss to those businesses, and it's a loss to a country, you know, that claims it's trying to increase its own revenue, non-oil revenue.
But what about Twitter itself? What's the cost to Twitter?
So there is a cost to Twitter, because don't forget that platforms make money from these adverts, but you know, it also depends on the volume of platform advertising. Don't forget there are two levels of advertising. There's platform advertising, the adverts that are run on the platform. Then there's off-platform advertising and services, which is basically when, you know, influencers are asked to promote a product or service and things like that. Nigeria has had a lot more of the latter than, you know, advertising on the platform Twitter itself. So yes, Twitter has had, you know, a loss, but it's not exactly a very big hit. And you can imagine that if a business has had a major hit to its, you know, revenue base, it would definitely have compromised a bit faster than it appears to be happening now. So yes, there's a hit to the, you know, Twitter bottom line, but you know, it's not exactly that Nigeria is one of the top countries where they earn money from, clearly.
Okay, but one of the conversations that's also been birthed from this is that the Federal Inland Revenue is targeting tax from Twitter and obviously other digital platforms. So would you say this is one of the advantages of the ban?
Well, you know, I've always maintained that any country is free to ask any company to register in its own space. But this is 2021, not 1984. So you will have to demonstrate that, you know, you have the conducive environment and that there will be more gain than loss to the platforms and to the companies. So it's okay, you know, that the government is asking platforms to register. What is not okay is how it's been done. You do not announce that people should go and register legally and then go to the National Assembly, which is what Mr. Lai Mohammed did. He claimed there was a law that would force them to register. Meanwhile, the week after or 2 weeks after, he was then going to the National Assembly to talk about a bill, not just, which is not law yet, which means, we sort of put the cart before the horse. We don't have the legislative backing for what we're asking them to do. Well, the other thing is that there's a general, business registration process that already exists. But what he was referring to was that platforms that are not physically in Nigeria are sort of, breaking a law, which is bullcrap, if you ask me.
But look at other countries now. Do you think is Twitter and all these other social media platforms, are they being taxed in other countries?
We've got like, over 160 countries, and, where people could say, oh, come and register. It's literally impossible for platforms to be present in all of those countries. So there are many factors they will have to consider. They will have to consider the legal requirements. They will have to consider the ease of doing business. They will have, but I honestly don't want to speak for these businesses, but I think it's very clear that it is impossible to register in all the countries. You can see that there are certain countries that have been pulling their weight. India pulled its weight. The difference between what Nigeria did and what India did. I mean, India had some excesses very clearly, but the major difference is that India went through legal processes. India went through creating a new law. Nigeria, Mr. Mohammed just announced, and they sent letters to telecom companies to shut down the services to Twitter, which in itself is illegal according to Nigerian law. So the approach we're taking is literally putting our foot in our mouth and then throwing tantrums like a child that says, carry me, carry me. Meanwhile, there are other children that can be carried. So I think that, yes, it will be my joy for Twitter to have an office in Nigeria. Then, of course, all the students that we train at Part-Time Initiative can maybe find a job at Twitter. But Nigeria is being silly the way we're going about it. Well, not Nigeria as a country. Mr. Mohammed and his cohort who are leading this show of shame.
We've seen other countries like China, for instance, now, stop most of these social media platforms from, working in the country so that they can have their own, homegrown platform. Shouldn't we be looking at, that avenue now?
Well, this is a, catch-22 situation. Even if Nigeria wants to say, let's have our own platform, look at what the CBN and the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy have been doing, in Nigeria in terms of the ease of doing business for startups and tech businesses. It hasn't been the best environment. The CBN is closing accounts today, banning platforms tomorrow. So even if we were to create our own, in quotes, platforms or our own Twitter, the CBN will kill them. Mr. Pantami and Mr. Lai Mohammed, and Mr. Emefiele will kill them, unfortunately. So unfortunately, that's one thing. The other side is that it is impossible, literally, it is impossible for you to say you want to replace something that has existed with something that has not even been done. But nothing stops Nigeria from promoting and creating a conducive environment for platforms to begin to start in Nigeria. I mean, we had an example of somebody who was going to create an alternative to Twitter, even though we heard nothing again from him now. But the approach was also emotional blackmail. You don't emotionally blackmail people to use your service. This is the gig economy. If it provides a service and offers something that meets the need of people, they will use it. And I think the message to Nigeria right now is, even if we want to go the way of India, India created coup, KOO, and that's why the government was encouraging people to go to coup and follow them. I guess they've gone to cool down there. Even if we want to create our own platform, Nigeria is not providing a conducive environment. Between the CBN, the Ministry of Comtech, the Ministry of Information, and all other folks that are not encouraging the ease of doing business, including state governments that are clamping down and are creating terrible environments for business, we will not encourage the Nigerian platforms to thrive because we are killing them and killing their businesses. We need to decide as a nation, do we want to clamp down? Do we want to spend all our energy? There's a cost to tyranny. There's a cost to clamp downs. Or do we want to promote an atmosphere of innovation. And I would, put my money on Nigeria focusing on a climate of innovation over creating a climate of fear and using terrorism and some other things, instead of really tackling them, using them as excuses to limit the creativity that is clearly in Nigeria. Look at what we've done in the tech sector. Look at what we've done, with Nollywood and other sectors, in spite of government. Now imagine there was policy support for any of these things.
Well, another thing that the federal government has noted is the issue of fake news and abuse of some of these platforms. So how do you suppose that the government can balance it, with allowing creativity to thrive with the businesses and the revenue that comes with it, and also managing the issue of fake news, which, of course, can also have a lot of disastrous impact on the economy?
Yes, fake news, as it has now become known, or disinformation, misinformation, and all its cousins, they are a problem. In fact, dangerous speech or hate speech, as it has come to be known also, is also a problem. But let me speak very quickly to three things. Number one is that the biggest criminal cannot stop a crime being committed by others, unfortunately. The Nigerian government itself has been one of the biggest purveyors of fake news and hate speech. If you want to find out, ask Mr. Propaganda, who I won't mention his name so that I don't put channels in trouble. He knows the propaganda business more than any Nigerian can try. And he's the Minister of Information and Culture. So if they really mean business with stopping this fake news and hate speech, then let them demonstrate by showing us that there is no impunity. Punish those amongst yourselves who have done this. Then we can have a conversation about fake news and hate speech. But having said that, being cheeky a bit, it is the job of all of us as citizens and even civil society and the private sector and governments to work together to change what is happening at the moment, which is the fact that there is, obviously a lot of dangerous speech online. There's gender-based violence and all of that online. And the way we can do that is not by banning from the top. Yes, there are legal provisions that can, there's a cybercrime law which is not perfect, but is clearly available to punish offenders. We've seen it being used a lot more against journalists and against opposition members. If you could also target, those who really, really commit a crime, give them a day in court, and don't, in the name of solving a problem, create another problem. Apart from that, the best way for us to promote better environment, a better environment online, is for the community online itself to have, community norms. And I know that people will say things like, oh, if you leave the community alone, they will never self-correct and things like that. But that's not true. That's not true. What is rewarded is definitely going to perpetuate itself. One of the reasons why platforms have provided an avenue for you to report what is dangerous or what is fake is because we're all trying to work together on this. Unfortunately, this is going to be a problem for a while. But don't forget, the reason why we have false information or dangerous information is not because of platforms. These are things that exist in community in itself. It's like somebody saying, there's too much gisting on social media. It's because we love the rumor mill. Before social media, we had our other print channels for the rumors and the stories that were not true. So it is because there is impunity. It is not being corrected. This, by the way, is one of the reasons why a few years ago when this conversation kept coming, we kept saying one of the problems with trying to tell people what not to say without demonstrating that you're committed to it yourself is that you will end up throwing, you end up behaving like someone who wants to keep committing a crime and saying others shouldn't do it. So definitely it is a problem. I don't know how many people have seen the report that was launched by Freedom Initiative recently on disinformation in Nigeria. And there's so many other society organizations that are looking at how we want to discourage this. One other way that government can reduce fake news in Nigeria is proactive disclosure of information. If you don't want people to start a rumor that the president is sick, then when the president travels, I think it's a lot better now. When he's about to travel, we get to know he's traveling to go and check his health and things like that. Before, the reason why there was a lot of rumor is because there wasn't proactive disclosure. People then began to ask questions, and there can never be vacuum in information flow. Somebody will try to fill it, and it usually comes either as fake news or hate speech and things like that. So those are some of the things that I believe that we can do. But the current approach of banning everything will not work. In fact, When you seek to control, what you will do is you will multiply the black market channels.
All right, Gbega, just very quickly now before we let you go, talking about taxing the digital economy, is there an effective way of measuring, taxable income?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's the same way you measure for most of that businesses. And in fact, when you have a new business, there's usually a moratorium because the business is new, because you are trying to encourage its growth. So you may give it a tax rebate. I mean, we've done that for cement anyway. We've done it for many other things. So we can apply the same technology because you want to promote the adoption of the use of these services. Because to be honest, I'll give a practical example. When we began to talk of the right of way, that state governments should please reduce how much it's going to cost to lay fiber cables across Nigeria. Some state governments were charging an arm and a leg and bringing your grandmother's bones from the grave. The irony is that when you do that, you're preventing people from being connected because of the greed of making money from the telcos in the first place. But if you reduce the cost, now we've got Kaduna, Ekiti, and others saying, in fact, come here, 0 naira, come and connect. When you do connect, businesses will thrive. And if businesses thrive, guess who benefits? Government, through taxes. More people get jobs, income tax, more people provide services, more people increase services, cost of, expenses increase and all that. And that helps, with the economy also. So the right way to do it, 3 quick things. Number one is policy. Do not create a clamped down environment. Make sure that policy supports innovation. All this nonsense from the CBN or the Comtech, Communication and Digital Economy Ministry, or from Information and Culture Ministry, those 3 gentlemen need to settle down and make up their minds that Mr. Buhari and Mr. Osinbajo, if you really want to grow the economy, then do what is right.
All right, Gbega Sheson, we'll have to leave it there now. Well, the regulators are doing all they can to also protect the Nigerian people. Thank you so much for your time on Business Morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll take a moment now. Commodities market update is next. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.